Hey, how's it going, everybody? Sean here from Zoobox, and today, or tonight actually, it's very late at night, so it's almost 2 o'clock in the morning. I just got my son to go back to bed. He woke up, so I was up late with him. He ended up staying up with me as we watched Robert Rodriguez's, Frank Miller's Sin City. I hadn't watched Sin City in like a really long time. I probably, when I bought the Blu-ray, that was probably the last time I actually like sat down and watched it. Well, I'm sure that's gonna be great for the sound. But that was probably the last time I watched it. So I don't even know when that was. 2012, maybe 2013, probably 2012. I think it was amongst some of the first Blu-rays I got. The Blu-ray is so old that there's like a little disclaimer when you put the Blu-ray in the Blu-ray player, and it's like it may take 2 to 3 minutes for the disc to load depending on your firmware. That was the thing back in the day. But anyways, the reason why I ended up putting that on or popping that on was because earlier today I remember that I owned Hard Boiled, Frank Miller, Jeff Darrow. Probably gonna do a video talking about this at some point in the near future. Um, and it just kind of got me in the mood for Frank Miller. I've been kind of diving back into comics lately. I've been reading a lot of just kind of random stuff. I've read some Batman stuff, read some Superman stuff, other random assorted things. I have just so much junk. I got so much shit, so many comic books. Um, so I've just been kind of in that zone, in that headspace. And so after watching Sin City again for the first time in, like I said, probably 10 years, I walk away from it still really liking it. I really liked it a lot. Frank Miller is doing a lot of really cool stuff within the graphic novel, and it translates pretty well to the movie, which is kind of taking the subtext and the seedy, slimy, dirty underbelly of noir detective stories, or noir stories in general, and kind of just bringing them to the surface of the aesthetic. That's why they're just much harsher, kind of more brutal, more visceral. It's not just the suggested reality, right? And they do, and he does a really good job, kind of balancing all of those things, and also like doing a serious version of something like that while also kind of being self-aware and having fun with it. Like there's so much dialogue in Sin City that is both awesome, like really badass, and also really corny at the same time. At the same exact time, and it's super memorable too. Um, but the movie is kind of just like it's a weird kind of coup, you know, because they went back years later, and I'm gonna revisit it in the near future, and if I find the time or have anything to talk about, I'll talk about it. They went back to the well and did A Dame to Kill For. Kind of, they still did a few other stories, but I think the main architecture of that movie is just A Dame to Kill For. And the magic really wasn't there. There's something about this production where it's just lightning struck. The casting was perfect. The attitude, they nailed the tone. Everybody seemed like they were really excited to be there. All of the actors are doing like great work. I mean, Mickey Rourke being a big standout, which I guess is not a huge shock to single out Mickey Rourke for his performance as Marv and Sin City. But Bruce Willis is also really good. What's his name? Dwight. Clive Owen's really good. Jamie King's great. Carl Gugino's great. The whole everybody. Nick Stahl as the Rourke son. That yellow bastard. He's great as well. He's actually that performance has really grown on me over the years because he again strikes just like this perfect tone for the material, which is both like kind of corny and silly, but also kind of awesome. Also kind of terrifying and badass in his case. Um, yeah, and it works really well. The only thing I would say as a criticism, the movie maybe the pace is a little off because of telling the multiple stories. And I think the stuff in the bar. So one of the only physical sets in the movie is Katie's bar, and they had trouble figuring out how to make it look good relative to the rest of the movie, because the rest of the movie is just shot on green screens and with like kind of very minimal pieces of set and stuff like that, mostly just green screens, and it didn't match very well. So they had to do this thing where they kind of uh, put a little color back into the frame. Everything's just really desaturated, but it's still there's still a lot of color to it, and it doesn't work as well, and it really sticks out. It sticks out like a sore thumb. Um, and also, just kind of, it's a little scattered because every time you go to the bar, they feel the need to connect the universe in a kind of more direct way. So you see other characters that from other stories that you're going to watch while you're watching this. Also, other lines from other stories that weren't adapted for this as well, if you're a fan of the comic book series. Um, and it's a little distracting. It's a little distracting, especially because the stories are not told in like chronological order. So when you see Marv show up in Hardigan's story, it's just more distracting. It's like it's not really a cool Easter egg because I just watched Marv's story. I understand that he's also in Sin City, but they just wanted to do that, I guess, just to add some sort of verisimilitude. You know, strengthen the idea that this is all happening in the same city around the same time, which, fair enough, fair enough, but I found a little distracting. And I think it's also a really great adaptation. I watched the theatrical cut. I do also have it's on like the second disc of the Blu-rays. It has all the extended cuts, which I might jump into at some point in the near future. I don't know. But I watched the theatrical cut of it this time, and I thought it played really well. I think it adapts the material very well. I think it streamlines those graphic novels in a way that makes complete sense. Frank Miller obviously being involved in the production pretty heavily as a co-director and co-writer, I suppose. Well, he's the writer, but a co-writer in terms of like, what do we keep in, what do we take out? And I think it just kind of distills the stories down to their essence. Some work better than others. I think like Marv's story, what is it called? The Long Hard Goodbye. Is that what it's called? And then the Big Fat Kill, That Yellow Bastard. I think That Yellow Bastard and the Marv one are the ones that are I mean, they're better stories in general, other than the one with Dwight and the girls from Old Town. That's like, it's okay. Like, I think Clive Owen's really great in that role. I think Benicio del Toro is fantastic in the role of Rafferty. But the story itself is okay. It's just okay. But the Marv one and That Yellow Bastard, like really great adaptations. There's a few things I know that are in the extended cuts that like I definitely miss, or I used to miss. I used to miss. It's been a long time since I've read the graphic novels. If I haven't watched this movie in 10 years, I probably haven't read those in 15. When the movie originally came out, I was just getting into this kind of stuff. Like I didn't have lots of friends that were into comic books. I didn't even really have friends that were into movies in the same way that I was. Most of my friends, we go to the theater and we go see stuff. I saw actually actually with Big Paul from Zoobox Corporate. We saw this in the theater together when we were kids. But I was just kind of discovering that stuff, and I would just kind of stumble onto things. So like I just stumbled onto Frank Miller because of Batman, actually. And then I read The Dark Knight Returns when I was, I don't know, 13, 14 years old. I mean, that was just a blind random buy. And then I just fell in love with Frank Miller. I just start reading other Frank Miller comic books. I read like Ronin. I read Hardboiled. This is another one that I just randomly bought. I've probably had this book since the early 2000s. And yeah, so obviously I come across Sin City, pick up the paperback I have. I still have my old paperback. It's like one of the first printings of the graphic novel, and like it doesn't even have on the cover. It just says Sin City. I don't even know if they knew it was going to be a series at that time or a further series, or they weren't selling it as a series, so they weren't selling it as like volume one. Um, so I don't even know if I was like totally aware that there was like a bunch of other Sin City stories. Because the internet wasn't what it is today. Like you weren't just going around looking shit up. Like I would just go to the bookstore, look at Frank Miller stuff. Like, oh, here's, Batman Year One. I'm gonna get that. Dark Knight Returns. Dark Knight Strikes Back Again had come out a couple years before I was kind of getting into that stuff. And yeah, so I used to miss things from the graphic novels because you're just gonna have like your favorite parts or things that stick out in your mind. And I know there's some stuff from That Yellow Bastard that I used to think to myself, like, oh, I wish that was still in there. And it's in the extended cut. It's not in the theatrical cut. But for the life of me, it's like a sense memory. Like, I can't place it. I can't, nothing is like sticking out when I watched it tonight. And because I had my son in my arms, I couldn't like look at my phone. My laptop was closed. So I was just like totally locked into the movie, and I ended up having a really great time. I really enjoyed watching the movie. It's cool. It's like they really caught lightning in a bottle, and it's not something they were able to replicate. They tried to replicate it. Well, I don't know. Maybe I'll see. I'll see. I am a mild apologist for Frank Miller's The Spirit, so maybe I'll like A Dame to Kill For. I don't like I don't like I remember when A Dame to Kill For came out and it was like, oh cool, they made another Sin City. It's the same people. And then for whatever reason, like I had like no interest in watching it. I mean, because it came out in like 2014. It just completely like evaporated. Like they missed their moment. Like if they had wanted to continue to make Sin City movies, they probably should have done it round about the time they had made this movie. But I think what happened was Frank Miller goes off and does Frank Miller's The Spirit or Will Eisner's The Spirit. I know he was trying to be very faithful. The Spirit being one of his favorite like comic books growing up. And that movie bombs. It's like a huge bomb. It's a critical dud. And he kind of I think he became disinterested in being a director, which is ironic because before my son hadn't totally fallen asleep when the movie was over, so I just threw on the commentary with Robert Rodriguez and Frank Miller. And Frank Miller is just like he had fallen in love with like directing. He's like, I love actors. I didn't think I would love actors so much. And yeah, so it's interesting. Like he definitely had a spirits dash like next time up at the plate, which is too bad because I mean the Spirit is like it's kind of a fucking mess, but it's like paced weird. That movie's got some weird pacing problems, but I don't know. I kind of enjoy the Spirit. Like it's such a weird movie. Like it's too weird to like not enjoy on some level. But in fairness, I like movies that for other reasons than just a movie being good. Other things about it that I'll find interesting, and I think the Spirit, gets there. It gets to that level. But yeah, so those just some late night thoughts about Sin City. I was like, oh, I should just do it now because I was like, oh, maybe I'll try to find time to do it tomorrow. And I'm like, that's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. There's so many movies I watch and I'm like, oh, I should record something. I guess I'll try to do it tomorrow. Like it doesn't happen. Might as well just do it right now. Right now when it's fresh. Fresh off the screening. See, I still have it on my TV. You have to forgive the mess. House is messy right now. But yeah, I still got it on the TV right now because I was listening to the audio commentary. But I really got to go to bed. Oh boy. Oh boy. Tomorrow's going to be fun. But anyways, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And yeah, if you haven't watched Sin City in a long time, I'd say give it a go. Give it a go. It's a really fun movie. Very unique. Very very badass in its own way. Very corny in its own way. Just kind of gets the balance right. Gets the balance right. And it'll never be replicated ever again.